Hello, my name is Brian Badger from the Cheetah Conservation Fund. Now, research papers and scientific journals are the cornerstone of frontline conservation. It helps build capacity and strategies and goodness knows what, it's the foundation. Now, CCF, over its 30 years existence, have published numerous research papers, but their latest one really does reach a milestone. It's regarding our livestock guardian dog program, and it's a study that's been conducted over 25 years. Now, that's involved hundreds of people, goodness knows how many farmers and farms throughout Namibia. But it's only one person that's been constant right from day one, and that is Dr. Laurie Marker. So I took the opportunity to catch up with Dr. Laurie in Africa and ask her to give us some insights, some unique insights and some background into the study and what it means for the future of the program. So without further ado, let's go across to Africa and speak to Dr. Marker. Hello, Laurie, and thanks for joining us today. And hopefully we can go over some bits and pieces about a little bit of another milestone that we're reaching, because CCF being a science, research and education centre, we've released one or two papers over the years. And
a few.
Yeah, just a few. Yeah, and can you tell us what the latest one is and what it's called?
Well, our latest paper is quite exciting. It is the 25 years of our livestock guardian dog use across Namibian farmland. And this is actually in a special journal, the Journal of Vertebrate Biology. And this is actually a whole journal that's actually just about livestock guardian dogs and the use of livestock guardian dogs. And there's only a handful of people who have used them, but for our 25 years, we've got the largest database, I think, of anybody pretty much in the world. And obviously more data than anybody in Africa. So I was glad that we were invited to put our paper and our data into this journal. And we've been pulling it together for the last couple of years. So pulling together a paper of that magnitude of any paper, a research paper, takes a lot of time.
Those watching that don't read regularly scientific papers or scientific journals even, could you just in a nutshell explain what a research paper is?
Well, a research paper actually takes the authors, we take our data and we analyze it, and usually you're looking for statistical trends and presenting the information in such a way that it then is peer reviewed. So instead of just saying, like I could say to you, our dogs are great, they're big and they bark and they protect livestock, but what's the data behind that? And the data behind that is then what quantifies the success of the dogs. So our dogs are very, very successful, and I could just say they're great, they bark loud, and they protect our livestock, but how do they do that? And so for 25 years, and when we set up the Livestock Guardian Dog program, we set it up as a research project. And so every dog, every farmer has been systematically reviewed, I guess. So we score the dogs, we score the farmers, we score the amount of livestock that has been lost pre and post having the dog. And then with that, how is the dog growing up? And how long does it live? What are there problems with the dogs? And we know what some of those would be. And so we actually have laid out our questionnaires in such a way that we can collect that information and then quantify the use of the dog and the success of the dogs. Unfortunately, for 25 years, it has been very successful. I might say that we've broken this paper down into three phases. And in a 25-year period, we were able to, obviously analyze our data multiple times. So our first was back, I think we published the first about 10 years, 8 years, I think, around 2000. And from that was, I'm going to call that the beginning phase. What did we learn bringing these dogs in? How did they do? How did they adapt? And then the middle period of time was from what we learned from the first part. How did we go about adapting and changing the way that we were placing the dogs? I mean, we were still successful, but we learned an awful lot of information going along. And then the last chunk, phase 3, has been, in phase 2, I have to say, we started doing a lot of farmer training workshops so that not only the farmers that we were placing the dogs with had knowledge, we started sharing the use of livestock guarding dogs with farmers throughout Namibia. And then this last phase really is from the things that we've learned and how we've adapted our training. Again, how are the dogs doing better all along? And so, yeah, I'm very proud of how the dogs have done. Just to give this into perspective, we have placed 668 dogs in a 25-year period of time. We started with 10 dogs that we brought in from the United States. And we then had several of those breed, although they were also working dogs, and we were able to maximize the genetic diversity within the population and maintain good bloodlines, bringing some new dogs in for breeding purposes, but we do maintain an entire stud book or registry of our dogs as well.
So when we're talking about the paper itself, it's as it's being compiled and researched, it's very much a living document, because when you're dealing with so much time, like 25 years is a big chunk of time. 668 dogs, that's a lot of dogs, and that's a lot of farmers. So you're going to find out information that's sometimes not exactly positive, because it's a true fact document. It's based on evidence. So, as when you said about breaking it down into the like the timelines, the beginnings, I would imagine that evidence that you gathered in that first bit really did influence the second part where you changed it. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. And so it's also, our work is also very adaptive. So as we learned about how the dogs were used. They'd been used in Europe. They had some use in the United States, which is when I got involved in them because they had been used in Oregon, which is where I had been based for 16 years, prior to coming over here to Namibia. So I was watching what the dogs had done. But I don't think anybody was systematically breeding the dogs, systematically placing them to the farmers in the same way that we were. And a lot of that work really revolves around the fact that we really wanted to know more about livestock losses and how to protect the cheetah. And so if we could reduce livestock losses, then the farmers would not kill as many cheetahs, which is what we wanted. And what we also found is not only were they not killing as many cheetahs, but they were not also killing all the other predators. And the use of the dogs was also stopping the other predators from coming in and killing their livestock. So in the name of the cheetah, we are helping not only the farmers, but also all the other predators within the system as well. And yes, so we talk about placing a dog, and we would place the dogs at about 8 weeks of age. So they're born in our goat yard, so they're sensitized and they know what livestock is. But there's a period of time that had always been thought, and I think it's still very important, which is a bonding period of time. And they say between 8 and 16 weeks. And so the dogs, as they would bond with the livestock, that's when we give them to their new flock. Then again, we monitor the dogs from placement. So we actually will do a pre-placement to make sure that the farm is ready, that they know what we expect. Then we place the dog, and then we will monitor it 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and 18 months, and then annually thereafter. So many of these dogs actually had multiple questionnaires to look at. So there was also a variety of ways that you analyze your data too. Um, and, and so that, again, blending it together and working very closely with our team members and our statistical design in order to actually figure out what our data was sharing with them. So there's a lot of data in there of those, 668 dogs.
And I would imagine as as the study goes on, it will almost spawn other studies as well. Now, when you're studying the dog's health, for instance, if there's a recurring health problem or a suggestion of a recurring health problem, that could almost be a separate study that spawned off that. I seem to remember the tongue, the dog's tongues. There was some concern about the dog's tongues kind of with the sun and melanomas and bits and pieces like that. So I would imagine that this, especially being gone on for so long, it's been a catalyst of further investigation.
Ongoing, absolutely, and opening up multiple more doors. And so we were able to discover something that's very interesting, not only with some of our dogs, but also with the mongrel dogs that are out there with livestock. But in certain areas, we actually were finding a squamous cell carcinoma, which is a cancer on the tongue. And it is interesting because it was only peaked over a few-year period of time, and it is actually decreased. And so, again, that's a study that we've spent a lot of time looking at the water and the soils and the dog food and working with a variety of pathologists as well. So that's one aspect of it, yes, opening it up into many more doors as well. But also looking at the livestock management side of things. How do the farmers farm their livestock? Are they protecting them? Obviously, if they're not protecting correctly and they're not caring for the dogs correctly, we found a real correlation over the years that if the dogs are not cared for properly, then they have and will take on bad behaviors. So over the 25-year period of time, that's caused us to spend a lot more time working with the farmers to basically teach them how to properly care for not only their dogs, but also their livestock, which again is a part of our Future Farmer of Africa program. And if the dogs are not cared for properly, they can do things like chase wildlife. And also that's something that puppies actually might start out doing. And therefore training a herder or the farmer to actually reprimand the dog appropriately. And these dogs are not a dog that you raise your voice a little bit to them and they go, oh my, what did I do? So they're an extremely intelligent dog, and all you have to do is give them guidance. And those are the things that we spend our time working with the farmers on. Obviously, if the farmer and the dog aren't getting along, we also will remove the dog and replace it with another flock. And that was also early research that it was thought that once the dog had bonded with that flock, you couldn't move it because it would become aggressive potentially to another flock. But we found that that's not true, that we can actually move the dogs and place them in another flock and they will do well as well.
I think it's encouraging that we all know that it is that living document. It is very fluid. It is very dynamic because it's not just a case of just doing the paper for doing the paper's sake. And because it is very, very much evidence based. Warts and all, because we all know that frontline conservation isn't all rainbows and unicorns. But the important thing is as we learn these, well, we all wish it was, but as we learn these facts, we can react and make the program even stronger than the immense success that it has been so far.
Yeah, and just think of that success. I mean, starting out with this, these are large dogs. They're independent thinking dogs. Obviously, there's a relationship between the herder and the owner and then the livestock, but the dogs actually bond to the livestock, and they're such a smart dog. They, as I've always said, think that we are not as intelligent because we don't see and hear the same things they do. And thank goodness they're out there. And they're oftentimes also very alert at night and bark because that's when also a lot of the predators are out. But we have actually found, with our questionnaires and the work that we've done with the farmers all of these years, that, again, we were monitoring around not only what the farmers thought. We found that 91% of the farmers were extremely satisfied with these dogs. Well, that was because 67% of the farmers found that they had no livestock loss a year after getting the dog. And another 24% of them had lost only, less than 5 livestock. So out of that, that's another 91% reduction in livestock loss by having these dogs. And that is not just to cheetahs, again, that's to the other predators. And so reducing that kind of livestock loss increases the economics to the farmer, the benefits of the dog to the farmer, and that's what then allows them to be more satisfied with their dogs. And it's just amazing to watch, and we've had a 4-year waiting list for these dogs. That's why, because they have been so successful. But again, the amount of energy and time that goes in it, we call and talk to the farmers, we go out to the farmers, we document, we collect the data, it goes into our computer, our FileMaker Pro database. We then can, analyze this, make graphs and charts and tables, and it allows us to say, well, what happened? What's with this age of dog or that age of dog? How old are they living to? One of the biggest, sadnesses, I think, is that we know that we do lose dogs under 1 year of age, and that is usually to poisonous snakes. And we knew that when we started. And we are now working on that. We're now doing snake training control. And that is an ongoing thing. And it has reduced the number of puppies that we are losing. The puppies are just, curious. And there are, especially during the rainy season, so many poisonous snakes out there. We've lost goats. We've lost a dog to poisonous snakes. And one of the things why the dogs are so successful is they have large litters of puppies. And so you can place a number of them, and it is a numbers game, that there is going to be in the middle of the bush some losses as well. Our job is to try to reduce those losses through collecting the information, finding out, and sharing all the knowledge that we have back with the farming community.
It would be very easy to say, well, what can you do? It's poisonous snakes. There's poisonous snakes everywhere. It's just, but that's not the case, because there are measures that you can take. You're not going to eradicate every problem, but like you said before, you can reduce, you can mitigate, you can give the training, and that's not only potentially going to save the dog or the goats or the sheep. That could, eventually save humans as well. So right. Because of that training, that awareness, and that kind of aspect of the thing. So again, a perfect example of that, like the scientific papers in action.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, and it's not an easy process either. I mean, coming up with a journal article, a manuscript, it takes a lot of time. Coming up with what your flow is, how you, again, lay out your data. Usually when you're writing a paper, you don't decide at the end that you're going to write the paper. You start from the beginning with your strategy. And that's why with us, we started with our questionnaires, and we've kept them going systematically so we know exactly what it is that we're asking. And then obviously analyzing the data and then doing statistical analysis around that as well. So it really does take a team. And for myself, starting at 25 years ago and monitoring it all these years, we've had a number of livestock guardian dog managers coming into the program, working for a few years, and then many of them go away. So we've tried to acknowledge all the people that have been a part of this program for the numbers of years that we've been at it. And again, as the director, I'm the one who's saying, this is, collect the data, let's get it into the computer. And so many of our interns we've got great young Namibian interns, and it's teaching them how to do data analysis and collect that data, and then obviously analyzing it. A lot of people, I just love this one. I know you've heard this one too, is, I don't mind going out and doing the field work. I just don't like to analyze the data or put data into the computer. It's like, well, that's really what research is all about. We spend so much of our time on a computer. Our computers are our best friends. And with that, going out and doing the research is fun. Going and talking to the farmer and, placing the dog and asking the questions, but then entering it into the computer is also the work part of it.
Like I always say, knowledge is king or queen, to be politically correct. And it's by that we can credit that successes, and also hopefully we've set the blueprint for projects like this for the future. Now they've got that point of reference.
Right. And again, given the amount of information that we have, human wildlife conflict with predators is a problem globally. And everyone thinks that livestock, that the predators are out there and want to just go eat your livestock, and that's not true. What predators want is a quick, easy meal, and that's why we push so much this management aspect, that really the farmers play a key role in their losses of their animals. If they're losing losses, it's not the predator's fault. The predator doesn't have books. It's not read how to do it. It hasn't watched on TV. It hasn't had CCF come and talk to the predator. However, the farmers can be trained. They can change their management by learning much of what we've been collecting for all these years. But predators are not out there just wanting to go eat your livestock. And if your livestock is managed and protected, the predator will go away and find the prey that it should have, which again is why we practice an integrated system of livestock and wildlife. And then predators can live within that system, but you have to have that enough rangeland, good grazing, and increase your wildlife population and manage your livestock so that there is a prey base for your predator to be able to eat versus eating your livestock. So there's so many different aspects to this. And, working with many of the rural farmers that we have, they haven't many times had wildlife on their farm. And that's why we continue to share with them and talk with them about the value of reducing your livestock loss, but you still then have to live within nature and within that system. And why we so support conservancies to have wildlife on the land where you also have your livestock and then you protect your livestock.
That's great, because that is it in a nutshell. Basically, it's practicing that holistic conservation. But Laurie, congratulations on the publication of the paper, both to you personally and obviously the organisation. Thanks very much for sparing the time to explain some of the details behind it, because they can be quite daunting sometimes to read. So to simplify them for us mere mortals is very much appreciated. So Laurie, thank you very, very much. We'll speak to you again soon. Stay safe and carry on the great work.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Brian.
Huge thanks to Dr. Laurie Marker for sparing the time to explain some of the intricacies of the study, as I said, that's been going on for 25 years. Now, you can read the study, or you can even download it on our website. It's very simple. It's cheetah.org. And then on the Learn tab, click that. And then you go for resources. And then just scroll down, and then you'll find scientific papers and loads of other stuff that you can browse through, download, and it's all free. You can also make a donation, sponsor a livestock guardian dog or a resident cheetah, and you can help us carry on the good work. So thanks very much for your time. Thanks for watching, and hopefully we'll see you again soon.